And here we go. Welcome back to Stocks by the Numbers. And today, as per request, I just wanted to do a very quick update on Lithium Americas Corporation, symbol LAC here on the New York. This stock right now closed 374, up 12 cents, about 3.33%, down 2 cents right now after hours. And I just wanted to look at a couple of technicals that I'm personally seeing and watching. And also, we can update some recent news that came out. Again, we looked at the stock right here after it had the pop. Again, this was about 3 weeks ago, the end of October, when the news was announced that they secured roughly $2.25 billion from the Department of Energy, almost, in my opinion, kind of solidifying them as one of the lead growers and players in the space. But again, that's just me. Laying this out before we go any further, this is a long-term play. Long-term means years. So the company has, again, raised the capital they need, as they said, supposedly. And now we're building out our facility. We had the update. They made their workforce hub, or whatever they called it, right? Little housing building for the construction workers over there at the site. So that's why we're slowly moving along, building up the facilities. And they laid out, I believe, 2027 potentially is when they will start mining. But again, I just want to remind everyone, this is potentially going to be the largest lithium producer in North America. That is why everyone has kind of been hyped about LAC for like the last, I don't know, like 2 years, 3 years. And again, we know with the updated timeline that we're talking about a couple of years down the road. But again, with the, the drama happening overseas, and all of a sudden everyone's upset with everyone else, and who's going to war, who's pissed off at this person. So we're kind of seeing the writing on the wall, which is why I think Trump, now after the victory, has kind of still, he's been pushing that energy agenda, right? Because I feel like they can see the writing on the wall a couple of years down the road of the potential rock and hard place, if you will, that the U.S. may be stuck in if we don't start tapping into our own domestic resources, which is why Trump, again, he wants to start drilling domestically. Trump and Vance have spoken highly about nuclear. Again, something like LEU broke out of that triangle and obviously exploded recently. But of course, if we start investing more into nuclear energy, then those stocks are probably going to continue on the up and up. And of course, something like lithium, we get a chunk of our supply from China. So chances are, again, knowing someone like Trump, he wants to try to limit the amount of imports of, foreign lithium, and he wants to start tapping our domestic veins here. And this, again, Thacker Pass, this is in Nevada. So, again, overall, in my opinion, I think this could be a phenomenal long-term play. Again, to remind everyone, right now you have a couple of years. Unless we get an update that they're going to start mining, middle of 26 or something, which of course could happen. But again, I just want to lay it out. This is a long-term, multi-year hold. So, don't expect $18 next week, is basically my point. But in the technicals here, we have a potential cupping and handling taking place. If you want to go to the top of these candles here, right, we could do something like that, and we could potentially say it's wedging right now. But in the moment, the stock recently dropped below the 20-day moving average. This is a 1-year chart, by the way. And we can see this top fib level here, 319. So in my opinion, that might be worst case. We continue to channel down maybe to like the very low threes. And you can see this is almost the middle of December where we might maybe break up and out. But also at the same time, if it's not a wedge and we're handling, right, cup handling, we may be getting ready for a breakup back into the fours and maybe even the fives here in the short term. Something like the January effect again, which is basically when a lot of these fund managers reposition what they're holding. We could, of course, see some volume come into LAC, but with the facility probably not being completed until sometime in 26, and the mining not potentially actually happening until 2027, then in my opinion, maybe this time next year, going into 26, that's when Wall Street may have the urgency to put the spotlight on LAC and, take a position in it over the next year or two. So, in my opinion, I'm not really sure if the January effect is really going to help out something like LAC. But of course, again, we know Trump, and, we know he just randomly spouts off what he's thinking. So again, if he starts speaking highly about lithium, or like, oh yeah, we got to move that along. I want the mining by 26, not 27. Right? You and I both know. We hear Trump make a statement like that, LAC is probably going to pop up. So of course, anything can happen, but I will say this, in my opinion, kind of knowing and seeing that we're looking at like a 2-3 year play. If I was to buy right now at 370 and the stock drops to like 270, in my opinion, I really wouldn't be upset. Because again, we know you have to deal with the short-term volatility in order to see that long-term growth. So I just wanted to reiterate to everybody, this is a multi-year play. So just understand what we're talking about here. But again, the technicals lining up again, potentially cup and handle, potentially descending wedge here. So we could have a pop up and out back into the fours sometime soon. But it does look like, again, some weakness here below the 20-day. And I think we may pull back even to 319 here. It's also a moving average, as you see right here, switching over to stock charts very quickly. We can see the RSI was above 70 on the loan news. Then we slowly started to pull back. I'm sure you got a bunch of traders taking profits. Pivot point 392, you can see it really wanted to hold that level. Tried to retest right there and then rejected, got below the 200-day moving average here of 380. And today you can see it actually spiked up to 381 trying to retest and then had a slight rejection. So now we have to see how it looks tomorrow, right? Did it officially reject and are we going to continue to sell off? Or is it going to try to retest the moving average again and try to get back above it and then try to retest the 392 pivot point? So you're going to have to keep an eye on some of those tight levels over the next 1, 2, 3 days to see what the stock decides to do. And obviously we won't know until we know, but we could also see the 50-day now curling up, sitting right there at 319. 1 year chart, 1 year fib level, 319. So that is very possible. Pulling back to 263, in my opinion, would be a gift. Because again, in my eyes, fair value, my personal fair value of this business is above $4 a share. So I'd say really any price under $4, you're probably in a very good position. MACD recently crossed to the downside after the big pop, right? That helped the sell-off and the break right there. But also, let me see something here. Yeah, it looks like we're below the support trend line, right? If we do from the bottom of the bottom here, 202, if we go like this across the bodies, right, you can see that's our longer term support trend line down here, 211. And if we come up like that, okay, so now you can see this is interesting now, because now we may be cup and handling and we may not even see 319, right? We may stay here in the handle, come down to whatever, 355, 350, and then we may pop up and out and bounce off of this support trend line. So again, only time will tell, but I'm just laying out, a bunch of prices above and below for you to keep an eye on, to potentially see where the stock's going to go over the next couple of weeks. But I don't know. Again, the fib level, the moving average at 319, I don't know. Something's telling me it may go down to 319. But again, after hitting the low there in August and then kind of retesting, but it's slightly a higher low back in September, and then we've been on the up and up. So right now it looks like this is the first support level to hold. And if we immediately drop down to it again, we're looking maybe like 340, 342. So we'll keep an eye on it, and again, if it bounces and pops, or if it tests and breaks, then, I'll do an update and we'll rehash the chart. But right now, that's kind of the few levels I'm personally watching in the technicals. RSI middle of the road. Switch over to the weekly. RSI middle of the road, 53. And we can see here as well, see how the 50-day moving average pulled back with the stock, and you can see after the news, look at the bodies of those candles stopping right at the moving average and then rejecting hard. Potential reversal. So that's why, again, we could come up back to 4+ and retest that moving average. If we get back above it, then yeah, we're probably going to run up to, $5.50, maybe even $6. So that could happen in the short term. But again, in the business, the current situation of the business, in my opinion, I wouldn't bank on the short-term trades. So, if you tell me, I'm rolling some dice, I bought, $5 calls on LAC for next month. I mean, listen, I respect it. And of course, I wish you the best of luck. Something like this, though, when people ask me about options, as I said, on cheaper stocks like Fubo, LAC, right? These stocks are only a couple of dollars a share. And I mentioned that in the past, I've played something like, I think it was like puts on Barnes and Noble or something. And the stock was like 165. And I bought one and a half puts like right before earnings. And then earnings came in light. I think the stock dropped to like 120 something, 130, right? So I woke up. I was like, oh crap, I'm a genius. What a great call. What are the puts worth? And the puts like barely moved. Which again kind of brings me back to my point. Unless you're going to buy like a $5 put, a $5 call, and then we get like a big positive announcement and the stock pops to 8, then chances are, unless you're massively in the money like that, you're probably not going to see a big return on calls or puts on some of these cheaper stocks. Which is why I say, in my opinion, if you can, instead of buying some calls on something like Fubo, just buy the shares. And again, I'd say the same thing here with LAC. Because we know they can bring it down and retest the pivot point, and then you get burned on your calls, right? So something like this, stock a couple of dollars a share, in my opinion, you're probably better off just owning the stock outright. But again, to each their own. But right here, again, we can see the rejection off the 200-day. And we can see kind of the consolidation, the channeling taking place. MACD technically still up and up here. But right there, that 410 would be the price that I'd watch. And again, we'd have to see how it reacts to these levels to see if we are going to have a break up and out to above 4, or if we're going to drop into the low 3s, again, high 2s. But in my opinion, I do like it. I don't think we're going to get to 943 anytime soon. But again, who knows? Anything can happen. Let's look at some recent news. Again, we looked at this stock like right here after it popped on the news again of the loan coming out from the DOE. So over the last couple of weeks, not much has been updated. But again, just to remind everyone, the timeline, we're looking at end of 26, maybe first half of 2027 before we start mining. So the stock can go up and down, remain quiet, not do anything for, 2 years and change before we start moving. Just keep that in mind. LAC maintained buy at B. Riley. Price target raised from 4.5 to 5. Yep. To reflect, quote, a more favorable. Lost 20 mil. Company right now has 300 million cash on hand. CEO, quote, this past year has been pivotal in moving Thacker Pass forward toward production, including entering into a new joint venture agreement with GM, closing the DOE loan. We are working to FID the project by the end of the year to move Thacker Pass into major construction and start executing on the well-detailed plan the team has been focused on for the past year. We are excited to start creating new jobs and bringing economic activity to Northern Nevada. There has been a lot of heavy lifting done by our team, and we have received a lot of support from our local community, business partners. We look forward to support a North American lithium supply chain. Again, that is the main selling point. So I know people may speculate, oh, what if they don't, produce as much lithium as they're saying? I understand all that. But again, domestic lithium supply. And sometimes something like this, again, having it kind of in your own wheelhouse, in your own backyard, that positive aura of the business may supersede, some underwhelming mining numbers or, a slight miss, if they miss on revenue or something for a quarter, but they say next quarter will be better, then Wall Street may gloss over those negatives and just look forward, right? You understand what I'm saying? So in my opinion, I think that's how something like this is going to play out. Looking to produce initial 40,000 tons per annum of battery-grade lithium carbonate. Company continues to focus on de-risking project execution by advancing project planning, detailed engineering, currently at approximately 40% design completed. So yeah, again, a couple of months down the road, we may get an update. Oh, now we're, 70, 80% completed. So that may, help bump the stock up a little bit. But again, chances are you're probably in this for the long run here before you really start getting big updates to move the stock for you. Procurement packages, contracts have been awarded, major earthworks, right, the workforce hub we spoke about, finalizing engineering, okay, 34 million capital cost. As of September, the company had approximately 341 million in cash, and they just said what? They burned through about like 20 mil for the quarter. So again, if you do that math, they can technically keep their heads above water for several years right now in the moment. So right now, unless we start hearing about excessive bleeding due to, one-time, two-time big fees or something like that, then chances are the stock really isn't going to take too much of a hit. Because in my opinion, it's kind of right near fair value right now. I believe we said was a little over $4. In October, they entered into the joint venture. Yep, we read about that. GM acquired 38% asset level ownership stake in Thacker Pass. Pablo leaving the company for another career opportunity outside the sector. Hey, listen, when someone else, offers big money, why not? Senior Vice President will assume the role. Okay, fine. Quote, on behalf of the company's board of directors, we are thankful for everything the team has accomplished during Pablo's tenure. Okay. Yep, signing GM for DOE loan. Wish Pablo the best in his future endeavors. Good luck, Pablo. Okay. Okay, yep, expenses up a little bit. That's why I understand if people in the short term say, oh, stock should go down, the numbers, the liabilities went up a little bit. Yeah, I understand. But again, over the long term, that's why when the stock was down at like 230, 260, that's when I was jumping on and I was like, oh, these people are kind of crazy. Like, I'd personally be a buyer. I think the stock's going back to $4 or $5. And then it bounced off those low levels. And then, of course, we started to get the news come out about GM, and then the loan of the DOE hit, and all of a sudden, the stock's back at $5. Total assets increased due to higher cash. Okay. Trump. La la la. Okay. Yeah, we got the loan. This was, end of October, right about the time we looked at it. So, yeah, we had a couple of price target changes over the last couple of days, but again, we're just kind of hanging out right now with this one. The company's total investment includes $430 in cash. CEO stated that the DOE loan, quote, de-risks project financing for Thacker Pass. The company aims to secure a domestic lithium supply chain, reducing dependence on foreign sources. So, de-risk again for project financing is huge, because again, if that money didn't come in, but they still needed to raise it, then we know that they either A, would have had to take out like a huge loan, who knows, with a massive rate on it, or on the flip side, they may have had to kind of flood the market and do, more stock offerings to raise cash for themselves. So the fact that the DOE came through, we got the joint venture with GM throwing in some bucks. So that's why technically it is a good sign for shareholders. Hopefully, no massive dilution has to come. Thacker Pass is currently the largest known lithium resource in North America. Phase 1 production is scheduled to begin in 2027, with full capacity targeted at 80,000 tons annually across 2 phases. Could supply lithium needs for up to 800,000 electric vehicles annually. Very, very nice. And again, I know they tie it to electric vehicles, but as I mentioned, as I'm sure you all know, a lot of these new devices, appliances now, they all have, lithium battery, lithium ion batteries inside them, what's rechargeable, what has longer battery life. So we kind of see the writing on the wall that if lithium batteries are more efficient, they have, a longer battery life and whatnot, then chances are we're slowly going to incorporate them and improve them and, throw them into, again, all these devices across the board. So that's why, again, whether you just want to tie it to the EV sector, which in my opinion is silly, but if that's where the bulk of it's going to go. Again, understandable, but also at the same time, I mean, 800,000 EVs a year, not too shabby in my opinion. Not too shabby. And also, it won't be viewed as ooh, lost for words right now. But what am I trying to say? It'll never be viewed as too little, in my opinion, because we're talking about lifting these EV mandates, right? Now, I believe technically off the top of my head that California is the only state that had the EV mandate. But again, we know Trump is very, kind of, you're free to make whatever choice you want. If you want a Camaro with a gas engine, go for it. If you want a Tesla EV, go for it. You want a hybrid, go for it, right? So that's how Trump is thinking. So that's why, if there is anyone out there saying, 800,000 vehicles, that it should be, 1.5 million, 2 million to meet the demand and the amount of EVs on the road like that. That's why I'm saying, in my opinion, I don't know if something like that will be an immediate issue. But of course, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. We're going 2-3 years ahead of ourselves. But again, you guys, I know you guys appreciate the way that I try to look at all different angles here when we look at a stock. So just thought I'd throw that out there. But yeah, to tie it directly to EVs, again, might be where the bulk comes from. But I mentioned I have a headset, right? Rechargeable lithium-ion battery inside of it, right? So we know that we're using, again, lithium kind of across the board now. So any domestic production is probably going to be viewed as a positive. Deutsche Bank reiterated hold, 310. LAC closed a much anticipated loan. While this announcement was expected by the market, that's a lie, because they were beating them up. If we were expecting this, the stock never would have dipped below $3.50, $4 a share, right? Let's call it like it is. We believe investors will view it positively. Yeah, no crap. Increasing confidence in the project financing going forward. Yeah, thanks for showing up. Corning, wow, God, I haven't thought of that name in a while. Corning was one of the first names I looked at on the channel. I think we looked at it in the high teens or the low 20s. And again, I know it's not a name that a lot of people may look at, but Corning makes a lot of products that a lot of people use, including, I know it was the Gorilla Glass on the smartphones. But as you can see now, obviously this stock is up at 47. So that was a nice grower. That's probably up over 100% since we looked at it. Brand name company, pay you a dividend to own it. Something like Corning, actually, now that I think about it, could potentially benefit well off of this new Trump administration. So maybe we'll throw that on the back burner, try to come back to GLW, do a video soon. What did we say? LAC. They closed the loan. Yeah, this is when we looked at the stock last. Maintain outperform, 725 price target. National Bank of Canada. I don't know if that's Canadian dollars or US dollars, but either way, that should be above current price. Bank said the announcement is a positive step towards lithium, achieving its fully funded status, joint venture. Company is targeting a final investment by the end of the year, and previously noted that it is also working to raise the funds necessary to fill an estimated $170 million funding gap. Probably shouldn't be an issue. I don't know if this is still an issue, because again, this article's from a couple of weeks ago, but as we just read, the company's currently holding about $340 million in cash. So right now they have twice this amount cash on hand, even if they have to pay it directly out of pocket themselves. So that's why in the moment after this DOE loan, that's why I jumped on, I made the update video kind of saying, in my opinion, this in theory, again, because nothing's guaranteed, but this in theory should kind of solidify the company as one of our, biggest domestic leaders for lithium mining that, we're kind of pumped about, that we're looking forward to over the next couple of years. And yeah, that was when we looked at the stock. So again, in the technicals, potential cup and handle here, keep an eye on this level, all those pivot points and moving averages that we spoke about. Again, you got people like B. Riley still maintaining a buy, $5 target. But, oh, let's look at the numbers again real quick. This was my argument. We can see the debt was 40 million in change, came all the way down. Now it's 4 million, right? Drop in the bucket. And even some things like the free cash flow has actually been improving, even though we're still operating at a loss, of course. But you can see Q2 of last year, free cash flow minus 48.5 million. Q2 of this year, minus 31.7. Q3 of last year, minus 37 million. Q3 of this year, about minus 27 million. So we're trying to, trim the fat and keep the losses in check. And again, we had the cash jump up. We're sitting here now 340 million in cash, basically no debt. So that's, positive 340 million. We have assets heavily outweighing liabilities in both the short and the long term. Assets jumped up, liabilities kind of got cut in half. Total assets minus total liabilities yields total equity. And we can see the equity now sitting at about 657 mil, plus the 340 million that we have in cash is just below about $1 billion, in my opinion, quote unquote, fair value for the business. So in my opinion, there's $1 billion business. Book value steadily climbing. Now, again, slight dip quarter over quarter, still above $3 a share, stock 374. So we're trading like 1.25 book, which isn't too extreme. And of course, the current market cap, 816 million. My personal fair value of the business is about $1 billion, which could be roughly 25% move from this level, which would technically bring you back to, I want to say maybe like 460 and change, maybe. So, in my opinion, that's kind of what the stock is worth right now. About 4.5, maybe 460. And again, that's fair value. So even if we do like, 1.3, 1.5 times fair value, you're talking about almost a $1.5 billion market cap. I mean, you're talking about $6 and change on LAC. And again, that's a valuation based on current fair value. We didn't even start mining yet. So that's why, in my opinion, I do think it was an overreaction. I think they knew that a lot of, younger investors saw the writing on the wall. They saw the hype behind the lithium sector and the batteries, right? We spoke about the stimulus money going into all of the battery stocks like Fuel Cell, QuantumScape. They all exploded. Anything connected to lithium, batteries, EVs, all exploded. But at the end of the day, just that narrative that this is going to be a large domestic lithium supplier and producer, that's where the value is, in my opinion. And it was just unfortunate because as people piled in and said, I don't even care what happens, I'm holding for 5 years, I'll come back to it. Chances are they do have a good chance, in my eyes, to turn out correct. But again, it was right during the hype of lithium, and then lithium prices started to drop down. Basically since that peak. So something like LAC went down with it, which again is kind of understandable, but also at the same time, we have to again keep in mind the fair value of the business. And also, even though the underlying mineral is dropping in value, they're technically not mining it yet at the moment. So it's not like they're holding, thousands of tons of lithium on hand and it's losing value day after day. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why to kind of move it with lithium in its current state doesn't add up to me too much, but it is what it is. We see similar moves happen with, Bitcoin and stocks like Marathon, MicroStrategy that are connected to the underlying security. So if Bitcoin pops 3%, those stocks move 6, 7, 8%. So, it's understandable in the moment, but the fundamentals seem to be growing nicely in my opinion. And I mean, of course, they could drop it back into the 2s, but in my eyes, they really shouldn't. And that's pretty much everything I'm seeing. So yeah, I'd keep an eye on this support trend line. If it breaks, you might have a bounce 319. But even if we stay in the channel, we may just be gearing up to pop out. So a couple of levels on the top and bottom for you to keep an eye on. You got your 410 moving average on the weekly. You got your 392 pivot point we spoke about, right? And then, of course, if we drop down, we see some levels. So just wanted to do a quick review. Unfortunately, not much news coming out, but again, it's a long-term play. And, we'll give it a week or two, and we'll see if we bounce and break out. We'll see if we test and break lower, and then we'll come back. We'll do another update for you guys, but that's pretty much it. I'll end it there. So once again, so Stocks by the Numbers, I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually pretty quick to reply. Thumbs up, algorithm, right? Helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, and they are very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.